The massive crystalline doors of the Galactic Council chambers swung open with all the grandeur that 10,000 years of bureaucratic traditions could muster. Ambassador Chen Wei straightened his collar, took a deep breath, and strode forward with Earth's application datapad clutched firmly in his hands. The chamber, designed to intimidate with its towering architecture and floating platforms occupied by various alien species, did its job remarkably well. The representative from Sol 3 approaches, announced the chamber's AI in 15 different languages simultaneously. Chen could swear he heard a few snickers from the upper tiers. High Councillor Zixatal, a towering figure with iridescent scales and far too many eyes, peered down at Chen from the central platform. "We have reviewed your species application for membership," the alien's translator crackled. "It was interesting reading." That wasn't a good sign. Chen had spent months preparing for this moment, but something in the High Councillor's tone made his stomach sink. "Tell me, Representative Chen," came the rumbling voice of Councillor Murtak from the lower right platform, their gelatinous form rippling with what Chen recognized as barely contained amusement. "Do your people truly believe that a species barely 300 years into their industrial age is ready for Council membership?" "With respect, Councillor," Chen replied, keeping his voice steady, "humanity has made remarkable progress in the last century alone. Our adaptability—" Yes, your adaptability," interrupted Councillor Vrel, their antennae twitching in what Chen had learned was the Arxian equivalent of an eye roll. "We've all seen the reports. You turned a planetary communication network into an entertainment system. You developed nuclear weapons and then used them to power cities. You took spacecraft designed for war and repurposed them for exploration. I fail to see how these achievements are negative," Chen countered, feeling a bead of sweat roll down his neck. High Councillor Zixatal raised a limb for silence. "It is precisely this unpredictability that concerns us. Your species doesn't follow normal developmental patterns. You skip steps. You repurpose technologies in ways that defy standard progress models. You are, to be frank, chaos agents in an ordered galaxy." The chamber erupted in murmurs of agreement. Chen watched as his months of preparation crumbled before his eyes. "The Council has reached its decision," Zixatal announced, all eyes fixed on Chen. "Earth's application for membership is denied. Furthermore, we are implementing a Class 3 observation protocol on your system. You may continue your development, but under strict monitoring. This is for the greater good of galactic stability." Chen stood there, diplomatic mask firmly in place, even as his fingers gripped the datapad hard enough to make the screen crack. "The people of Earth hear and acknowledge the Council's decision," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "We thank you for your consideration." As he turned to leave, Chen allowed himself a small smile. They thought they were containing a problem, but really, they had just removed all the rules humanity had been trying to follow. As the crystalline doors closed behind him, he activated his comm unit. "Control, this is Chen. Initiate Protocol Omega. The Council has made their choice." He paused, then added, "And they're going to regret it." The United Earth Emergency Summit convened 36 hours after Ambassador Chen's return from the Galactic Council. Representatives from every nation crowded into the Geneva complex, their faces illuminated by the harsh glow of holographic displays showing the Council's formal rejection notice. "They think we're unpredictable," President Rodriguez of the Pan-American Alliance slammed her fist on the table. "I'll show them unpredictable. We should cut off all quantum communication channels with their merchants right now." "And lose our primary source of advanced technology?" Premier Liu of the Asian Confederation shook his head. "That would be exactly what they expect, an emotional, hasty reaction." Ambassador Chen, seated at the head of the table, cleared his throat. "If I may?" All eyes turned to him. "They've given us something invaluable, freedom from their rules. Think about it. Every Council species developed along their prescribed paths, their technology, their expansion, their society, all following the same template." Chancellor Okafor of the African Union leaned forward, a glint in her eye. "But we've never been good at following templates, have we?" "Exactly." Chen activated a holographic display showing Earth's current colonial projects. "They've placed us under observation, but they haven't restricted our development. They expect us to either fall in line or fail spectacularly. Instead, we're going to succeed our way." The room buzzed with sudden energy as understanding dawned on the assembled leaders. This wasn't a setback, it was an opportunity. I propose the formation of the Terran Expansion Initiative, Chen continued. A unified effort to develop human space without Council oversight or influence. We've been trying to copy their methods, but our strength lies in innovation in finding new paths. The funding requirements would be astronomical, Minister Thompson of Oceania pointed out, but they were already pulling up projection charts, though if we redirect the resources we were using to meet Council membership requirements and consolidate our colonial programs, added Director Volkov of the European Federation. We could do more than that, Rodriguez interjected. Remember Project Phoenix, the one the Council said was too unstable to approve. The room grew quiet. Project Phoenix had been Earth's attempt at developing alternative FTL technology. The Council had shut it down, citing safety concerns, but without Council oversight. I move to establish the TEI immediately, Chancellor Okafor declared. All in favour? The vote was unanimous. Within weeks, diplomatic channels with Council worlds began closing, not with a bang, but with a series of polite technical difficulties and system upgrades. Council merchants found their Earth contacts increasingly busy with internal matters. The quantum communication buoys at the edge of the solar system underwent routine maintenance that somehow never quite finished. Meanwhile, the shipyards of Mars hummed with unprecedented activity. Project Phoenix was dusted off and moved to a new facility in the asteroid belt. Colonial ships that had been designed to Council specifications were pulled apart and rebuilt with human innovations that would have given Council safety inspectors heart attacks, assuming they had hearts. The first true test came 3 months later. The colonial ship Magellan, retrofitted with prototype Phoenix drives, prepared for its maiden voyage to the Proxima Centauri system. Council observation posts recorded its departure, no doubt expecting another standard colonial mission using their approved methods. Instead, the Magellan vanished in a flash of golden light that bore no resemblance to standard Council FTL signatures. When it reappeared at its destination 17 hours later, a journey that should have taken 3 weeks, the observation posts went absolutely berserk. Chen watched the light show from his new office in the TEI headquarters on Luna, sipping real Earth coffee as Council communication channels exploded with activity. He could almost picture the panic in their chambers, the frantic discussions about what this meant. Sir, his AI assistant chimed, the Magellan reports successful deployment of the new colonial pods. They estimate the first city will be operational in 72 hours. Standard Council estimate for initial colonial establishment. 6 months, sir? Chen smiled and raised his coffee mug in a toast to the distant stars. Chaos agents indeed. The next 5 years transformed human space in ways that made the Council's developmental models look like kindergarten finger painting. Without the constraints of Council safety protocols, human innovation exploded across every technological frontier. The Phoenix Drive was just the beginning. Dr. Rashid's team at the Lunar Advanced Physics Institute cracked the code on quantum entanglement communication, developing the QNet that made FTL communication possible without relying on Council relay stations. When asked how they achieved what Council scientists had deemed impossible, Dr. Rashid just shrugged and said, "We didn't know it was impossible, so we didn't waste time proving it couldn't be done." In the asteroid belt, Director Zhang's mining operations introduced self-replicating, automated refineries, a technology the Council had banned due to uncontrollable proliferation risks. Turned out all you needed was good programming and a healthy respect for Asimov's laws. Production of critical materials increased by 800% in the first year alone. The colonies grew like wildfire. Proxima Centauri went from one city to a thriving network of settlements in 18 months. The Tau Ceti expedition, using third-generation Phoenix drives, established 3 habitable worlds in their system within a year. The Alpha Centauri Mining Consortium became the largest producer of exotic materials in known space. Not that the Council was willing to admit they were buying human-produced materials through shell companies. "They're watching us," General Martinez commented during a TEI board meeting, projecting the latest intelligence reports. "Council observation posts have doubled their sensor coverage of our expansion zones." "Let them watch," Dr. Rashid replied, not looking up from her quantum calculations. "They're still trying to figure out how we settled Tau Ceti so quickly. By the time they decode our current methods, we'll be 3 generations ahead. The breakthrough that really sent the Council into a tizzy came from an unexpected quarter. A junior engineer at the Mars Healthcare Division, Dr. Chen Xiao, no relation to the ambassador, was trying to adapt medical nanites to survive in zero-G environments. She ended up creating something entirely new. Adaptive biomechanical enhancers that could temporarily modify human biology to survive in extreme environments. It's not exactly comfortable, she admitted during the first demonstration, her skin taking on a distinctly bluish tinge as her body adapted to the low oxygen test chamber, but it beats wearing an environment suit all the time. The Council had strict laws about biological modification. They also had strict laws about which planets could be colonized based on environmental compatibility. Dr. Chen's EnviroShift technology rendered both sets of laws hilariously obsolete. With the ability to temporarily adapt to almost any environment, human colonization efforts accelerated beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Worlds, previously deemed marginally habitable, or requiring extensive terraforming, became prime real estate overnight. The colonial administration, struggling to keep up with the explosive growth, underwent a dramatic reorganization. The Terran Expansion Initiative evolved into something bigger, the Solar Alliance. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of the Council, the Alliance operated on a federal system that gave individual colonies significant autonomy while maintaining central coordination for defense, trade, and technological development. "We're not building an empire," Ambassador Chen explained to the First Assembly of Colonial Representatives. "We're building a network. Every colony brings something unique to the table. Every innovation is shared. We grow stronger together, but not at the expense of individual identity." The Council's first real indication that they might have miscalculated came through their merchant guilds. Trade routes that had been stable for centuries began shifting as independent worlds discovered that human markets offered better prices, faster shipping, and more innovative products. Council merchants, bound by traditional trading protocols, found themselves losing ground to human trading companies that somehow managed to be both more efficient and more personable. "They keep asking how we're managing our supply chains," reported Trade Director Patel during a secure QNet conference. "They can't believe we're achieving these delivery times with our primitive technology." "Did you tell them it's because we let our AI logistics systems actually make decisions instead of just crunching numbers?" Martinez asked with a grin. "I told them it's proprietary information," Patel replied primly. "They offered to pay quite handsomely for our trade secrets." The real wake-up call for the Council came when the independent world of Nexus Prime, a crucial trading hub, formally requested human protection after a dispute with Council enforcement vessels. The Council had expected the Chaos agents to burn themselves out. Instead, humanity had become a stabilizing force in the regions beyond Council space. In his office on Luna, now expanded to accommodate the growing administrative needs of the Alliance, Ambassador Chen reviewed the latest expansion reports. 57 major colonies established, 112 outposts in development, trade agreements with 23 independent worlds, and not a single one following the Council's precious development templates. His AI assistant interrupted his reading. "Sir, we're detecting increased quantum chatter from Council space. Analysis suggests they're calling an emergency session." Chen leaned back in his chair, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. "Took them long enough to notice how many Council merchant ships are currently in our space using shell companies and false registrations. 347 at last count, sir. And how many have actually followed proper Council protocols for technology transfer and trade restrictions?" "None, sir," Chen laughed. The Council's carefully ordered galaxy was unraveling, not through force or rebellion, but through simple human ingenuity and the basic desire to find a better way of doing things. "Send a message to the Alliance Council," he instructed. "Tell them to prepare for Phase 2. I believe the galaxy is about to become much more interesting." The Galactic Economic Forum's annual report caused quite a stir among Council species that year. Somehow, amid all their careful observation of human military expansion and technological development, they'd missed something crucial. Humans had become absurdly wealthy. It's quite simple, really, explained Trade Director Patel to a gathering of Alliance representatives. The Council's trade routes were designed like spokes on a wheel, all leading back to their core worlds. We built our network like a web, connecting everything to everything else. The holographic display behind her showed the intricate mesh of human trade routes spanning the galaxy, bypassing Council checkpoints and cutting journey times by up to 80%. Independent worlds that had once waited months for Council shipments now received human goods in weeks or even days. But it wasn't just about faster ships. Humans had introduced something that baffled Council economists: adaptive pricing algorithms. While Council merchants stuck to fixed rates, established by centuries of tradition, human traders let their AI systems adjust prices in real time based on local conditions, supply and demand, and even cultural factors. They call it chaos, Patel said with a grin. We call it market efficiency. The military situation evolved in equally unexpected ways. When the Council first excluded Earth, they'd expected any human military development to follow predictable patterns: bigger ships, stronger weapons, standard stuff. Instead, humanity went sideways, as usual. Admiral Hassan's presentation to the Alliance Defense Committee showcased their latest innovations. Traditional space combat relied on massive ships and energy weapons, he explained, gesturing to the tactical display. We looked at it differently. Why build bigger ships when we can build smarter ones? The Phoenix-class destroyers were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Small, agile, and powered by AI systems that made Council military computers look like pocket calculators. They could outmaneuver anything in known space. Their weapon systems, derived from Dr. Chen's EnviroShift technology, could adapt to enemy defenses in real time. Best part is, Hassan added with a predatory smile, they cost about a tenth of what the Council spends on their dreadnoughts. We can build 10 ships for every one of theirs, and each of ours is more effective. But it was in civilian technology that humanity really showed its talent for disruption. The EnviroShift system evolved into a whole family of adaptive technologies, buildings that could reconfigure themselves based on weather conditions, vehicles that could transform to handle any terrain, communication devices that could switch between quantum, subspace, and even old-school radio depending on local conditions. The Council keeps trying to categorize our technology, Dr. Rashid noted during a science consortium meeting. Military tech in one box, civilian in another, restricted, approved. They don't understand that human innovation doesn't work that way. Everything connects to everything else. These innovations had an unexpected effect in neutral space, the regions beyond both Council and Alliance control. Independent worlds started adopting human technologies and methods not because they were forced to, but because they simply worked better. The Council's influence had always been based on technological superiority and rigid control of development paths, but faced with human alternatives that were more efficient, more adaptable, and often significantly cheaper, that influence began to crumble. Even their own member species started asking uncomfortable questions. Why did Council approval for new technologies take decades when humans could safely implement improvements in months? Why were Council trade routes so expensive and slow? Why couldn't they adapt their ships like human vessels did? The situation came to a head when the Varaxian Empire, a significant Council member, announced plans to experimentally adopt human trading practices in their outer territories. The Council chambers erupted in chaos, but there was little they could do. The experiment yielded a 300% increase in trading efficiency within the first month. In his expanded office complex on Luna, now serving as the Alliance's central coordination hub, Ambassador Chen hosted a delegation from yet another independent world seeking trade agreements. Your success is remarkable, the alien representative admitted, their translator struggling to convey the mix of admiration and concern in their tone. But surely you must see that this level of change, this quickly, risks destabilizing the entire galaxy. Chen smiled, remembering similar words from the Council years ago. Change is only destabilizing when you resist it, he replied. We're not forcing anyone to adopt our methods. We're simply offering alternatives, if those alternatives work better. He spread his hands in a universal gesture of, what can you do? The quantum communications array chimed. Sir, his AI assistant announced, we're detecting a large quantum surge from Council space. Analysis suggests. There was a pause that, despite coming from an AI, somehow managed to convey surprise. They're requesting an official diplomatic channel, through proper protocols. Chen's smile widened. The Council, it seemed, was finally ready to talk. On humanity's terms, the Council's emergency session had been running for 3 standard weeks. The chamber, once a symbol of unified galactic governance, now echoed with accusations and demands for action. High Councillor Zixatal's multiple eyes twitched with barely contained frustration as yet another member species threatened to withdraw. The regulation of developmental paths has served us for 10,000 years, Zixatal insisted, their scales dulling with stress. We cannot abandon our principles because of one species' reckless success. Reckless, the Varaxian representative's translator crackled with derision. My people's outer colonies have achieved in 2 years what your approved methods couldn't do in 50. The humans aren't reckless, they're efficient. That was only the beginning. The merchant guilds reported catastrophic losses as even council worlds began preferring human trade routes. The Science Ministry admitted they couldn't replicate human technological advances because their development patterns defy established theoretical frameworks. The military command's latest report was just a long list of capabilities they couldn't match. Meanwhile, beyond council space, the situation was even worse or better, depending on your perspective. Independent worlds weren't just trading with humans, they were actively copying their governmental and technological systems. The Proxion cluster, a group of 17 independent worlds, had already adopted human-style adaptive AI systems for their infrastructure. The Dendari Confederation was rebuilding their entire trade network based on human models. Even the notoriously isolationist Zath had sent diplomatic inquiries to the Alliance. The Council's response was predictably bureaucratic. They formed a committee to study containment options. After 6 months of deliberation, they implemented trade restrictions, technology embargoes, and diplomatic pressure on independent worlds to reject human influence. It failed spectacularly. The trade restrictions were circumvented by human AI systems before they were even fully implemented. The technology embargoes just prompted more innovation. Humans, it turned out, loved nothing more than being told something was impossible. As for diplomatic pressure, well, that backfired in ways no one expected. They tried to pressure us into rejecting your trade agreements, the Dendari ambassador explained to Chen during an alliance summit. Said we'd be excluded from council markets if we didn't comply. So we ran the numbers. They made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. Your markets are 60% more profitable anyway. The choice was simple. But it was in the field of environmental adaptation that humanity's superiority became impossible to ignore. A crisis on the council world of Zathal proved to be the tipping point. When their planetary environmental systems began failing, council engineers estimated 2 years for repairs using approved methods. The death toll would have been catastrophic. The Alliance offered help. A team of human engineers using EnviroShift technology and adaptive construction methods stabilized the situation in 3 weeks. They rebuilt the entire system in 3 months, adding improvements the council hadn't even thought possible. That's the fundamental difference, Dr. Chen Xiao explained during a technical briefing. The Council sees technology as something to be controlled and regulated. We see it as a tool to help people. They ask, is this allowed? We ask, will this help? The final straw came when the Council attempted to declare human adaptive technology unstable and dangerous, only to discover that 3 of their own member species had already begun mass-producing licensed versions under Alliance safety protocols. In his office on Luna, Ambassador Chen reviewed the latest intelligence reports with a mixture of amusement and vindication. The Council's carefully ordered galaxy was transforming, not through force or rebellion, but through the simple reality that humanity's chaos worked better than their order. Sir, his AI assistant announced, we're receiving simultaneous requests for diplomatic channels from 12 Council member species. They're bypassing Council protocols entirely. Chen nodded, unsurprised. And the Council itself. Still in emergency session, day 47, they're currently debating whether to create a subcommittee to evaluate the possibility of considering potential options for preliminary discussions about possibly adapting some human methods. In other words, Chen translated, they're finally realizing they can either adapt or become irrelevant. He straightened his collar, a habit from that first council meeting so long ago. Well, let's not keep our new friends waiting. The galaxy is about to change again. 10 years after Earth's rejection from the Galactic Council, Ambassador Chen found himself once again approaching those crystalline doors. This time, however, circumstances were rather different. Instead of clutching an application datapad, he carried detailed reports of human achievements. Instead of hoping for acceptance, he was responding to their desperate request for dialogue. The chamber looked exactly the same, yet somehow smaller. The floating platforms, once intimidating, now seemed almost quaint compared to the adaptive architecture of Alliance buildings. "The representative from the Solar Alliance approaches," announced the chamber's AI, still using the same 15 languages. Chen noted with amusement that they hadn't even updated their translation protocols to include the 7 new trading languages that had emerged in human space. High Councillor Zixatal's scales had lost much of their iridescence, dulled by what Chen assumed were years of stress. "Ambassador Chen," the translator crackled, "we appreciate your willingness to meet with us." "Of course," Chen replied smoothly. "The Alliance is always happy to engage in diplomatic dialogue, though I must admit we were surprised by the urgency of your request." A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber, showing the current state of galactic trade routes. The once orderly pattern of Council routes was now overshadowed by the complex web of Alliance networks, pulsing with activity. "Our analysts have compiled some concerning data," Councillor Murtak stated, their gelatinous form rippling with agitation. 28 independent worlds have adopted Alliance governance systems. 43 have implemented human technological standards. 15 Council member species are openly advocating for... They seem to choke on the words regulatory reform. Chen activated his own holographic display, adding additional layers of data to the galactic map. "You forgot to mention the 112 worlds using our educational systems, the 73 planets we've helped make habitable with EnviroShift technology, and the 216 trading posts operating under Alliance safety protocols, including, I might add, 63 owned by Council merchants through shell companies." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Chen continued, each word calculated. "We've also noticed an interesting trend in patent applications within Council space. It seems many of your scientists have been quite inspired by human innovation methods." "This is precisely our concern," Zixatal interrupted. "Your influence spreads like a virus, disrupting 10,000 years of stable development." "Stable stagnation," Chen corrected politely. "Your own records show technological progress slowing by 4% every century under Council protocols. In contrast, regions using Alliance methods have seen an average 300% increase in development speed while maintaining better safety records than Council space." He gestured to another section of the display. "Perhaps you'd like to discuss the Zarthal incident, or the Dendari trade revolution, or maybe," his smile turned slightly predatory, "the fact that 3 of your core worlds have secretly asked about Alliance membership in the last month?" The silence in the chamber was deafening. Finally, Councillor Vrel's antennae drooped in what Chen recognized as resignation. "What are your terms?" "Terms?" Chen raised an eyebrow. "We're not here to take over the Council or demand surrender. We're here to offer cooperation, on equal footing." He laid out the Alliance's proposal: open technology sharing under joint safety protocols, standardized trade routes accessible to all, educational exchange programs, collaborative research initiatives, the removal of arbitrary development restrictions in favor of practical safety guidelines. "In short," Chen concluded, "we're offering you the chance to grow with us instead of falling behind. The galaxy is changing. You can either change with it or become irrelevant." The Council members conferred in hurried whispers. Chen waited patiently, remembering how he had stood in this same spot a decade ago, hoping for their acceptance. Now they were the ones hoping for his. "These terms," Zixatal finally spoke, "they would require significant changes to Council structure and protocols." "Yes," Chen agreed, "change is what we do best." "And if we refuse?" Chen shrugged. "Then nothing changes on our end. We'll continue to grow and innovate. Your member worlds will continue to adopt our methods unofficially. Trade will continue to shift to our networks. And in a few years, someone else will be sitting in your seats having the same conversation with me or my successor." The Council chambers, designed to project power and authority, suddenly felt like a museum piece, a relic of an order that had already passed. One by one, the council members signaled their agreement. As Chen left the chamber, his AI assistant chimed quietly, "Sir, the Alliance Council is asking about the outcome." Chen smiled, remembering his words from 10 years ago. "Tell them it's time for the next phase. The galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place, for everyone this time." 5 years after the historic meeting with the Council, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The newly formed Galactic Cooperative, headquartered in a sprawling space station at the confluence of major trade routes, bore little resemblance to the rigid hierarchy it had replaced. Ambassador Chen, now serving as Earth's representative to the Cooperative's leadership assembly, stood at the observation deck watching ships from 100 worlds pass through the bustling trading hub. Council vessels flew alongside Alliance ships, their crews working together with the efficiency that came from actual cooperation rather than enforced protocols. "Quite a view, isn't it?" A familiar voice drew his attention. High Councillor Zixatal, now simply Representative Zixatal, joined him at the window. Their scales had regained some of their former luster, though in a different pattern that reflected their adaptation to change. "It reminds me of something you once said," Chen replied, "about chaos agents in an ordered galaxy." The alien made a sound that the latest translation protocols correctly interpreted as rueful amusement. "We were right about that part. You brought chaos to our order. We just didn't understand that some systems need chaos to evolve." Below them, a Council World cargo ship was being retrofitted with Alliance adaptive technology. Nearby, human engineers worked alongside alien specialists to upgrade the station's environmental systems. The distinction between human and Council technology was blurring more each day. The latest development index came in, Chen's AI assistant announced. Technological progress across former Council space has increased by 500% since the formation of the Cooperative. Cultural exchange programs are oversubscribed on 67 worlds. The waitlist for the Human Innovation Methods course at the Galactic University is now 3 years long. "And to think," Zixtal mused, "we once thought your species needed to be contained and monitored for the galaxy's safety." Chen smiled, remembering that day of rejection that had started it all. "How's the Class 3 observation protocol working out?" "Officially discontinued last week," Zixtal replied, "along with most of the other containment protocols. They seemed rather pointless when half our worlds were openly asking to be more like humans." The observation deck's adaptive surfaces shifted, automatically adjusting to the changing light from the nearby star, a product of human innovation, now so commonplace that even the most conservative Council worlds used it without a second thought. "You know what the really ironic part is?" Chen said, turning to face his former adversary. "If you had accepted Earth into the Council back then, we would have tried to follow your rules. We would have contained ourselves. By rejecting us, you forced us to find our own path, and that path turned out to be better than anything either of us could have imagined." Zixatal's translator produced something between a laugh and a sigh. "Perhaps we should add that to the Cooperative's founding principles. Sometimes the best progress comes from rejection." As they stood there watching the endless flow of ships and the mingling of cultures that had once been kept carefully separate, Chen thought about chaos and order, about rules and innovation, about the fear of change and the courage to embrace it. To the galaxy's chaos agents, Zixatal offered in perfect, unfiltered human English, a small but significant sign of how much things had changed. "To cooperation," Chen replied in flawless Council standard, "and to finding better ways together." Behind them, the Cooperative's AI chimed softly, announcing another breakthrough from one of the joint research teams. The galaxy spun on, more chaotic than ever, and infinitely more interesting for it.